Hey, what up everybody? Duck here. Welcome back to the stream. Hopefully the audio sounds good for you guys. Just adjusting a few things here. But yeah, chime in if audio sounds trash. Alright, so starting out with Bitcoin Daily. We, obviously over the past, couple 2 weeks here, we've had this nasty sell-off, but what we've done is we've found this immensely critical support, right? Like this is make or break type stuff here. So what we're looking at would be kind of basically like two scenarios, right? Obviously, let me get rid of this magnet. Obviously losing, this massive areas of support, which we've tested now for the third time, would be bad, right? So we had so far what was a deviation below the lows, right? So we're not so concerned with the deviation. We're more concerned with what happens to the price and price action simply following the deviation, right? Which that would basically look like this. We would follow the deviation, follow through, right? And even maybe backtest again as now resistance, even multiple times, would be fine either way. As soon as you lose that again, it's probably going to be pretty bad, right? And again, it's dependent on this, right? This price action follow through. Again, if we simply just wick but come right back above and our follow throughs to the upside, right? Here would be that follow through. So that's what we're looking for, right? That's what we're really concerned with. Let me switch this pencil. That's what we're really concerned with, okay? So can we fall below this one more time and still be alive? It is possible, okay? It's possible, and we'll discuss, but for the most part, we really need price going in this direction, right? This would be, much, much better. Okay, so if we lose this, we basically have this minuscule amount of support over here, which is basically like 23.5, but then really there's really nothing until the previous all-time high, which was at 19.5, right? So basically, if you were to lose this with follow through, the odds are pretty favorable that you would come all the way to the 19.5 next support before then seeing if you can hold something there, right? So that would be pretty devastating. Zooming in here real quick. So this is just a 4 hour here. Okay, so let me zoom in. Okay. So 4 hour now. 4 hours interesting because it doesn't look like terrible because, overall, let me switch to the pencil. Overall, you've been putting, you put in the initial low, right? But then you started putting in higher low. So that's a good sign, right? Good start, especially when you had the high and now a higher high. So what we need is to sweep this previous high right here. So sweep that high, especially if we hold it. That would be awesome, right? Do I think we're gonna hold it? I think we'll hold it in time, but I think what we need to do is a little bit more confirmation around the lows, to be honest. Can that go as far as sweeping this low one more time, right? What do I mean by that? Like come all the way down, right? And almost like a fake out where you sweep the stops here, deviate there, and then start making your way back up, right? Can that occur? Absolutely. Okay, so definitely be aware of that. Now if it swept that, it has to react fast, right? It has to get back above fast, because we can't have that follow through to the downside. That's where we lose everything, right? Okay, so what I'm thinking would make the most sense here. Okay, don't worry so much about the support at the moment, right? Because again, we could fall below, it's up, and follow through up, and we're still fine. So what it looks like, again, we need more price action, but just stay with me here. It would be something more along the lines of some kind of just double bottom, right? So here was your initial low, right? And you create this next kind of, you with me here, right? It could hold here, it could sweep the low. Either way, it's this kind of V-shaped into a rounded double bottom, right? This is your Adam and Eve double bottom. So again, something like this would make, you know, sense as well. At that point, it would be a really nice, you know, initial low with now a much higher low, right? So that would be on a higher time frame. That's how that would look. Not necessarily here. You'd lose a couple of these low, you know, minors, right? So picture this. Then you know, you build some sort of neckline up here, right? And as price gets out of this, you know, you sell back off all the way down through this, and you rise back up, and you know, something like that, right? So that would make much more sense to me, to be honest. So that being said, I don't think the accumulation down here at the lows is quite over. If this is indeed going to hold, I feel like there's definitely some more of that accumulation, right? Going back out to the daily again, you can see this downsloping trend line in white, right? Whoops. Switch from the pencil here. So watch where that's coming from, right? See that downsloping trend line? Okay, a couple touch points here. So pretty major because it's on a, you know, significant time frame here. So what I'm looking at here is, normally if we were to bounce around in here, we don't often bounce all the way to the edge like that, okay? All the way to the, you know, the point, the apex, whatever, of the down, you know, basically making a wedge, triangle, whatever, right? Geometric shape. So what I'm saying is, we don't often get all the way down into that tip. What usually happens is you have the reaction somewhere in this vicinity, okay, where there's room left to run, and either the reaction is down or the reaction is up, right? But the reaction will occur prior to that apex, okay? So that being said, let's look at this some more. Let's see where we are. We're basically right here, and we're saying we basically, you know, that we could go to about 2/3 of the way from where we are. So this is kind of the area, right, that if we were going to do anything here, I just don't see you getting all the way down here. I really don't. So that's kind of, I don't know, what is that? It's quite a ways, you know. That's all the way to the 4th of July. I guess that's not that long. It feels like that's a long ways away, but 4th of July really isn't that far away. But yeah, so picture an Adam and Eve, and then as you break out of this, right, you can have some back testing here, and then that's where you get your breakout. Okay, does that make sense? Sorry if I overcomplicated that, but it's kind of the idea, right? So again, no follow through to the downside. This is all bad, right? We don't want nothing, no part of that. Okay, no part of that. All right, hope that makes sense for Bitcoin. And again, what I'm basically looking at is like, almost look back over here from the previous May 20th low, right? Previous May 20th low, and sorry that I don't have the dates down there. I'll adjust that. I've been messing that up kind of recently. Anyways, this is May 21st low. The bottom was June 22nd, and then this third bottom was July 20th. Okay, so that's what we're looking at over here if you're following along. Pretty obvious on the daily, okay? Anyways, if you notice, you had the big sell-off, right? But then you came up and you made that, you know, V-shaped initial, you know, minor V-shaped recovery, not like full out V-shaped recovery, right? But minor V-shaped recovery into more of a rounded double bottom, right? And then we paint this neckline where we broke, back tested, follow through price action to the upside. Targets were hit because they would have looked, you know, like this if you were just trading this pattern alone. That's what I'm trying to say here. You would have hit targets like that, right? So that type of structure is what we're looking to mimic. So you can see that this didn't just come down and then just leave right away, right? That there was a period of accumulation that happened at a critical area of support, and that was critical being, you know, previous from the January 28th support and the resistance from Christmas, right? So those became your support here. So that's where we find ourselves again, right? Okay, so what we were getting at there was just look back to this structure for answers here. And as you could see, if this was our initial low, sorry, pencil disappeared. Okay, right here. If this was our initial low, that would mimic this, okay? So we're basically saying we basically swept it one time, slightly, follow through back to the upside, came back down, and we squared that area up, and then again, follow through to the upside. So what we're looking at right now would be, you know, again, coming here and sweeping that, slightly sweep, and then follow through, square up the level, and then here's your climb out of it, right? Something like that would match all this. All right, so that's Bitcoin. I know we spend the most time on Bitcoin. We'll move a little faster as we go through it here, but it's Bitcoin in a nutshell is hold this support, break up out of this downsloping trendline resistance, back test it or hold it as a resistance, and then start working on sweeping, you know, the 48 high, the 52 high, you know, start painting some higher highs out here into space, right? Higher highs up here. Okay, so either that or follow through the downside and you go back to 20K. So that's what we're looking at. All right, so now comparing this, going to the DXY, okay? So if you notice, this is what we've been keeping an eye on here, okay? And we've sold out of, we fell out of it basically overnight. I know the price action on this is sporadic because it doesn't always trade. You do create gaps, but it definitely trades after hours a lot more aggressive than anything else, that's for sure. But anyways, we had the breakout, okay? Sold off. Now we're finding some kind of meh support, right? So can we have a little rally here? Sure. And then we just paint a, you know, a lower high, and then we sell off again, right? So in inverse, bruh, well, this small recovery occurs, that's Bitcoin sweeping that low or putting in that Adam and Eve right there. And then as you sell off again, right, this would be Bitcoin then breaking out of said structure, right, to the upside. So a little, you know, slight recovery here would make sense in inverse to what we're doing. And again, look at that breakout to the downside was pretty aggressive. You know, a lot of selling, so it makes sense to have a small little recovery here. It's not going to hurt nothing, and then, you know, you just sell off again, right? So okay, so DXY finally looks like it might be starting to play ball here. Okay, so we need this to keep rolling over, right? Small back test, whatever. Roll over, back test this now as resistance, right? What is once support here becomes resistance over here. and then, you know, we find ourselves back in this zone again in no time. That's what we're hoping for. Okay, if that doesn't occur, okay, if we see this just absolutely monstering our way back up, this is Bitcoin at 20K or right here, right? Bitcoin went back and we fell out to the bottom side, okay? So in order for us to go, you know, back to 40 and 50K, you know, it could go up a little, but you know what I'm saying here. This has to break to the downside for us to be in the 40s and 50s and 60s, right? This occurs down here for Bitcoin on the upside. All right. So, but overall, I mean, we got to start somewhere, and this, I mean, we'll take it, right? We'll take it. Hence why you had your inverse reaction, right? This is Bitcoin at 26, and now you've rallied all the way back, you know, to above 30K again because the DXY has been selling off. These things have been riding inverse of each other. For most of their history, right? For most of BTC's history, at least, it's pretty much been inverse to the dollar, right? Okay. Moving on. So here we are on the DXY, excuse me, BTC.D, Bitcoin dominance chart. Okay, and we've been watching this on the three day for quite some time. Again, look, this could literally be BTC here, right? You've had a rally up, and when you sold back off, you find some you initial 26, right? And now we're doing some of this. This is where we're like right here. So we run up whatever 31.5, 32, and then we sell back off, and then this is, you know, 28, 26, whatever, 29 even. It could be, you know, it could be up here 29. So then we rally again, and then we sell off one more time to square that up, right? And then we start painting higher lows, higher highs, higher lows, higher highs. So at this point, this should not really, I don't expect this to fall below these at this point, right? Like if we were to stop here, you are almost ready to start doing this, right? Where you start trailing your stop. But right now, I would say we leave it here. We are looking for this to maybe do something like this, but then run again, right? And as it runs away, that's when, you know, we're starting to follow. But overall, I would say that this reaction back on May 10th was pretty significant and broke out of that down sloping trend line. Massive bullish engulfing candle, right? And we've never really fell back below where that closed that day. I mean, a little bit of a wick, but yeah, this is you know, the Bitcoin dominance is taking over, right? So the Bitcoin train can end up at, you know, 65, 85, right? Like this is what we'd be talking potentially here. So looks good, looks good. I know a lot of people, even like we were back here with this, had some initial hope, and then everyone was losing hope. No way, and then rally again, higher low, breakout. So a lot of, you know, took a lot of time, right? A lot of time there. You're talking a year. Bitcoin reaccumulating its dominance over the crypto sphere. So interesting. ETH BTC. All right, so ETH BTC, interesting. So we basically are inside this massive kind of range, right? Where we came up, made the range high, range low, you know, range high, range low, range high, range low, range high. So just bouncing in here, right? And now we've basically started to make from basically back here, you're really just starting to make higher lows, higher lows, higher lows. And again, right? So that's a good sign. And not only that, but right here we have in red basically like the roughly the range midpoint, which we've had this plotted for quite some time. And look how we came right back and, you know, just sat right on that, right? So interesting hold. You know, I'll take a double bottom right here even. Whatever we got to do there. But yeah, so ultimately what that was follow through to the upside here, right? Versus losing the range midpoint and starting to head back towards that range bottom, because that's where you'll find yourself if you lose that range midpoint, right? So we're right now holding that range midpoint, which in theory, in inverse of what we just said, should find us squaring up this level here, maybe sell off a bit there, hidden bullish divergence develops, we find ourselves at the finally at that range high. Okay, so ETH, if we're saying Bitcoin's gonna have a good day, ETH should have a better one in theory. This looks solid. So moving over to ETH itself, ETH, let me get the pencil, rid of the pencil. ETH came all the way back here. If you look all the way back here, this was on July 21st, 2021. Okay, we had this price action where we painted this, you know, triple bottom here basically, right? And when we hit that, we ran away and we never returned, right? We never returned to this area. So this was like a void of space basically, right? A void that needed to be filled. So as price ran away, eventually you found yourself coming all the way back into the void, right? As low as the midpoint of it, right? For that first touch. Then you've now rallied and sold off a second massive time. And this time, let me clear all that. This time, boom, we have now hit that square up. You see that? Crazy, right? All the way return, full return, right? So that being said, we have a square up there, and we also have basically the bottom of it, right? So there's our support for ETH. So zooming in now, that is current support. So zooming in, we basically just have two simple objectives here. If we backtest this, whatever. Even if we backtest the second one, still not that concerning, right? You know, more it still wouldn't be that concerning. So what we don't want, obviously, though, is to completely lose both of them and then follow through to the downside. So this is option one. No, bad, right? We don't want that. So option two is simply, here's your V, right? Here's your V. Get some kind of double bottom. Give me some kind of neckline. Break above it. Hold it. And let's go. Again, our neckline, it hasn't really been fully established yet. So it could still adjust. But looking back left over here, you can clearly see this wick, right? Back from February 24th. Okay, so if that wick, let me go back over here a little bit. If that wick were to become the neckline, it would look like this, okay? Which means go ahead and rally up to it, right? Make your way up to it. That's fine. And then we sell off methodically and make our way back to it again. And then there's your pattern, okay? So either way, you see what I'm after is simply more accumulation, some more sideways. I know it's up and down within this range, but overall, if we were to zoom out, that's pretty sideways, okay? So that being said, we could almost like find some kind of range in there and see if we bounce around sideways in there and then finally get out, right? So either way, same story, different coin. Okay, yeah. Nobody ever said if the volume was good. I'm assuming it is because nobody ever said anything. So I'm going to continue, but stop me if I've been talking to silence. So going into the alts, again, you know, the sell-off is basically all the effery because of the stupid Luna scam, right? Just caused a bunch of BTC to be dumped. Sell-off occurred. We're just trying to reestablish things. It did not go to zero. It's not gonna go to zero. We live to fight another day, and that's it, right? So sounds good. All right, thank you, sir. Okay, so what I'm looking at here on Sol, excuse me, this neckline came from this like 3 rising valleys way back here in 2021. Okay, and if you look at it, let me plot it right all the way across now. Okay, you see where that came from? I could even go up slightly. So look what happened, right? What was once previous resistance back here, we've sold all the way back off and now turned that into support, right? Critical, what, you know, it was support here, became resistance, it's now support again. So very critical area. Zooming in on that, again, same structure. We could either do it right away, or we could climb a little higher and make a bigger one. Either way, give this a second test as support, hold it, square up the level, hit in bullish divergence, breakout, right? Basically, it's going to be the same story on everything, right? Bitcoin has to do it, ETH will match it, alts will follow. If ETH and Bitcoin can't do it, the alts are going to do this, okay? And continue to bleed, right? So it's imperative that the DXY continues to roll over bearishly, and Bitcoin and ETH, you know, the bids need to come in. I feel like, you know, aside from this falling to 20K, right, and 20K becoming support, right now at 30, it's basically like it. A lot of people are going to see this as, you know, a good entry point to hold a long for a decent amount of time. And if the 30K fails, you know, they bail and reload at 20, or just average out at 20 and end up averaged with a 25 entry, right? So something along those lines makes a lot of sense based on just what we're seeing, and also the reaction that not only crypto had, but equities recently. It looks like, you know, we might finally be ready for some recovery now that the DXY is finally going to roll over. Again, all of this has been literally based on that DXY chart. The party can't start if the DXY is continuing to go up, right? We need it to die. It doesn't have to go to zero, but it needs to sell off. That's when you have your party in basically almost everything else will pump during that. Those are your bull runs, right? And then when the DXY finds bottom and runs again, that's when you know, go bearish again, right? So we're for the most part playing inverse of that. So now, you know, the DXY has to let us play. So hopefully, you know, time is now, right? So again, with Sol, like Bitcoin, huge down sloping trend line that touched the harmonic a couple times. You touch this touch point out here from April Fools, right? And again, you're approaching that apex. You still have a little bit of time, but you know, run up, double bottom, support, breakout, right? You never actually complete the apex like we were talking about. Your breakout is somewhere, you know, along the way. You know, from here to there, you would break out like 2/3 of the way, right? This is 2, this is 1/3, right? So look at it like that. Okay, it's pretty much everything's gonna follow that same path, right? You could almost hide the ticker, and you know, you could hide the ticker and pretty much if it's an alt, it's basically going to follow. Okay, so next we have AAVE. AAVE, so check this out. We had this downsloping, falling trend line here on the underside of us, holding us up, and we did fall right to it, and again deviated, but immediately came back above it with follow through to the upside. So we're not so concerned with the deviation. Okay, so AVE, again, expect some kind of, again, even that rounded bottom could backtest this, right? Again, and you backtest it, for a 1, 2, 3, 4, almost fifth time right here somewhere. So that would make some sense. Zooming in to the 4 hour, even closer, 1 hour. We were looking at this last night, and look what started to happen, right? So we have broken out. Literally, look at what we said: breakout, back test, maybe twice, and then take off. Okay, so what we saw here was initial low, higher low, higher low, higher low, right? So what that was doing is we kept testing this overhead resistance, right? Testing it, and basically like that's like overhead, that's supply, right? $92 was acting as resistance, but that's because there was a lot of supply there. Somebody had a big, or multiple cumulative amount of people, right, had a big sell wall there where they had a bunch of orders sitting there layered, right? This being here, right? And every time we'd go up into there, we'd grab a few, but there was too many, right? And we'd sell back off. And then we'd go back up and we'd grab a few more, but then we'd sell back off. And then finally we came up again on it, right? And now there's no more asks in there. And now we broke up, and now we're going to mark up to the next level where the next, resistance sell wall is, right? The next big ask wall. Okay, so what we did here is we looked for these the close at the low, not necessarily the wick. You can do the wick here, but we were just more conservative with the target. Okay, if you do the wick to neckline would have a more aggressive target. Okay, so being that we were more conservative, our target is more likely to hit than somebody more aggressive. Okay, so that's the explanation there. But yeah, so somebody punting a long at this very exact moment can target this, and your stop can be either below this second previous cluster, higher low, or you can take the local minor swing low there, and that gives you a perfect 3-to-1. So right there, just you find all these little trades and you take them like that, right? If it doesn't play out and this does this, right, and we sell off, so what? You're gonna find this a dozen more times and you take it, right? That's what we're doing. So another reason we want to take this target, right, and not just ride this all the way to $1 million, is because we just said we're looking for a V-shaped sell-off, right? So here is where we're going to paint that neckline potentially, right? So we're going to get up and we're going to hit that neckline. You need to sell there, because then you're going to ride all this, right? You're going to sell all the way back off, and that sell-off could potentially stop you out because you didn't take profit, right? So that's why this is a trader's market and not an investor's market. A trader is going to find a setup. He's going to layer out some targets, and as price runs up there, right, it's going to hit his orders, and he's going to take profit, and then it's going to sell off, and he's going to do the same thing again somewhere else, right? So take your profit, reload again down at the low. Almost picture this as range low, range high at the moment until we break out of it. But that'll be down the road. Okay, so AVE looks good. We alerted this right here. Okay. All right. It might have been right here. Either way, rallied all night, sold back off, higher low, and rallying again. Okay, so no harm, no foul. All right, moving on. Litecoin Daily. Similar on all these S coins here, where you came all the way full circle back to these breakout points where price ran and never came back, right? So there was a lot of, if we zoom this way in, you're going to see a significant square up on one of these that this wick just absolutely kissed, right? You'll see that on all of them. You can go check all your alts and follow it back there, and you'll see a very significant square up. So again, this, it's just not, it doesn't look, now that we've sold off, that it's going to take time here to for that accumulation. So again, look how there was 3 shots at it, right? This is barely 1. So we expect a couple things to occur here, right? So that's all I'm saying. Again, hide the ticker, same thing applies across the board. And on all of them, for the most part, this, excuse me, same downsloping trend line occurs across the board as well. So as this approaches, right, you're running out of room. Okay, you're running out of room. This is the no zone, right? The no buy zone. So you don't have a ton of space here. Okay, it really makes sense based on the no fly zone approaching, as well as the downsloping trend line, which will approach as the more we go sideways. This is coming down on us, right? So it's going to have a point where, which it's here, but you know, there's a meeting point. We can't, it won't go sideways forever, even though it might feel like it. There will be a break point. Okay, so next, again, same thing, BNB. All these alts, Dodge, they're all gonna just do the exact same thing. You're gonna run up, sell off, neckline, break, hook, and go. Okay, it doesn't matter what it is, and it's because that's what Bitcoin has to do, and that's what the alts are gonna just follow it. It's not rocket science. Okay. Again, look at this rune. This one had 3 significant touch points. Okay, and now every time we ran up, we touch this downsloping trend line, then we sell off to the range low. We run up, we touch this downsloping trend line, we sell off to the range low. We run up, we hit the downsloping trend line and midpoint, we sell off to the range low. So couple things here. Okay, so one of 2 things are going to occur. Okay, either this range low is going to give, right? And if that becomes significant resistance and you get that follow through, almost it's like it would backtest one little time there and then it would just start nuking, right? This would be a short trigger on the follow through, you know, something along these lines, right? And again, we're not going to go to negative, but that's why it's almost more likely. Yes, we could still go low. We could still go into the like dollar or cents, right? But because of where we are and because that play would almost go negative, it doesn't seem likely, right? Again, you could pull a Luna, but again, what's more likely is this. Okay. And again, we start running up, and even if we backtest this again, paint that head and shoulders, right, and then just fake everybody out on it. Either way, I think that this is the kind of thing, guys, that like you're supposed to do, right? You find a range low, you buy the range low, you get to the range high, you sell. Okay, this is called buy low, sell high. You're given a perfect opportunity here to test it. Why wouldn't you, right? Again, never would you go all in on one of these alts. This is just a stab, right? If I had 100 grand, I'd throw like a G on it, all right? Maybe a couple, 2 or 3 of them. But I'm not putting like 90 grand on it, right? 90% of my stack. I'm putting like 1, 2, 3% at risk. And then you just have several plays. They each play out differently, different times, right? You're not, even at 100 grand, you could even put 500 on this, right? See how we're not putting the world at risk, where if I lose 1R of 5 grand, I mean 1R of 500, you know what I mean? I lost like, you know, whatever. I lost $100 or something, right? I still have $99,000 left. You don't need to kill yourself on each one of those things, right? Ridiculous. That would be just simply over positioning, right? Much better to let this 500 turn into, you know, 2,500, right? Or something like that. Or let it get stopped out for a small loss of 100, 200. That's what you do. If you were to buy this here for 500 and sell this right here, oh my God, right? 5x, 6x. So like that's what you're trying to do. So range low, range high. So put that to the test, try it out, add a bag to the stack, right? That's all I'm saying. Okay, moving on. GMT, this was a request here. Okay, so on this one, you'll notice again this wick came over here, squared you up, really nice. A little bit of a harmonic, but nothing crazy here, right? Like if you were to say, no, see, that's too high. So even though it has similar structure to a harmonic, I think maybe that's what somebody was seeing. This looked like just a big harmonic. Maybe that's what the request was. On the daily, we don't have a ton of price action here, so I would bring this into the 4 hour. Okay. Now looking at the 4 hour, I would say this doesn't look the best. Okay. What we're seeing here is from previous, it's basically 3 times. Okay. So it's 4 times. That's pretty bad. Okay. So we need this to change. So 1, 2, 3, 4 times you got hidden bearish divergence. Okay, so that starts at this high, next high, or lower high, and then finally another lower high. Okay, so this is continuing to just push it down. Now you're starting to slowly, you know, get away from this, but at the moment, you know, pretty bad. Okay. So what it looks like is you may get lucky here and break out of this slightly because Bitcoin and others do it, right? So you get this slight breakout, but it's just because you're going to hit this massive resistance back here, right? Okay. So you come and you hit this resistance, and then after doing so, that's when we sell off, right? And we make that, sorry, let me do it a little better. We make that rounded bottom, and that became the neckline. And that's, this is more of the strategic entry at the moment, okay? So even though you can get a little bit of up here, there's not really a trade there. I mean, a real small one. Guess you could call it a small one, but it does, you're kind of playing with fire there based on how bearish this looks overall. So I would wait for this. Okay. Backtest the dollar. Backtest $1.20, $1.15, and that's where you may see a place to load up. Okay. Sorry, Roku next. Okay. So stonks, some stonks here. Okay. So Roku, you know, interesting turn of events here. You had this downsloping trend line from the A and C high back on the yellow harmonic. Tested it here, break, back test, and then ran it. And then now we fell on it one more time. So very interesting. Okay. So then on the inverse side, you have this two X's, right? Making, along with this D, making the yellow upsloping trend line here. So what we need is, you know, you see this big like megaphone, right? So we can bounce in here. That doesn't matter, okay? It doesn't matter if we bounce. What matters is we need to reclaim this, okay? And as we reclaim it, we could keep testing it as support and start painting, you know, a low, a higher low, a higher low, right? So that's what we're looking for there on Roku. And it seems decent because the X, right? You're above that previous X. So that's a good sign. Where it's like a low, right? A higher low, and now a higher low. So that's good. You don't want to lose that X. And you've hit an 886 right at this downsloping trend line. You hit an 886, fibbing from the X to A. You can see we hit an 886 there in green. Okay, a teal, whatever you want to call that. 886. I'll make it like pink. Okay, see it? So we came down, we hit the 886. Yeah, we're below it right now, but you're in the buy zone. Things like that. I mean, see what I mean? It'll look like that. You're still in the vicinity. And again, this was all due to DXY just blowing off the top. Hopefully, if that's what we just witnessed the past couple weeks, and that's why you fell below that 886 into a more of a optimal entry, quote unquote. Okay, Pinterest sitting right in the buy zone. Okay, see what I mean? How stop below this previous X, XABCD, pretty much textbook. 50% retrace on the B, went up 786 on the C, and now you came in perfect 886, and look at that double bottom in the buy zone. Earnings approaching, and you have oscillators not looking too bad. Yeah, where you double bottomed, look at what your MACD basically, you know, you double bottomed and you were hardly able to even sell off again on the MACD, right? The negative momentum was non-existent on this sell-off, and immediate follow-through to the upside, and you were up another 5% today. And you had a huge surprise earnings on the 27th of April, which was just like, what, 2-3 weeks ago, right? So Pinterest, I would not be afraid of here at all. It's one of the ones we've been in. I know some of them play out, some don't. It is what it is, but it looks like Pinterest, again, buy low, sell high. Okay, you're looking for the A and C. It's gonna be a while, but you know, that's a heck of a ride up there. Okay, so a long position right here would have looked like this. I mean, you could have went B, first target. Stop would have been here. That's already over 3.5 to 1. Okay. And then from there, it would have been something like this. Okay. So 6 to 1, 3.5 to 1, 6.5 to 1 roughly on your money. And that could go as high as, you know, like 7, almost 7.5 to 1 on your money. So great trades there as far as risk to reward goes. EXAS. We talked about this one recently. We said you would layer into the buy zone. Look what happened. Every one of our orders filled. We have earnings approaching August 3rd. Looks like if we were to zoom in here, we might just kind of, you know, do that same thing where here's our V into a rounded bottom, and then eventually we break out of this and start rolling. Okay. So my targets here. Stop loss $35, target 130. Okay. Second target 150. Front run it 148, front run 130, and call it 127, right? So there you go. EXAS, exact science. AMD, we talked about AMD yesterday. AMD was up 9% today. Okay. Go back yesterday, you'll see us talking about it right here at 94. Today you're above 100. Again, your targets are the C and the A high. You back tested some what was once a resistance, became support again. Good spot for invalidation. 886 at critical horizontal line support. Stop loss would be $72. Target 132. That would look like this from a trade standpoint. Okay, 4.39 to 1 on your money. We are only simply looking for even 2 to 1, but mainly 3 to 1. And here you're getting 6.5 and 4.5 to 1 on your money. Okay. ENPH, huge range. Okay, huge range here. Somewhat of a harmonic in development. Reason being, I mean, you pretty much had it's almost like a Batley, right? Where you had a 618 roughly on the B, but then you hit the 886 on the D. That 886 roughly on the D was also the 1414 from B to C, right? So you're also above this kind of, again, if we were in a big range, range low, range high, range low, range high, deviation, hit the range low again. Range midpoint, fall back, range low, right? So ideally, the next course of action here is to retake that midpoint. Okay, so getting above this midpoint, and then you're going to hit the C target. Okay, so let's get above the C target, and then you're going to hit the A target, which is basically the range high. Potential partial decline, right? And that's where you paint a head or a shoulder, a head, another shoulder. Everyone gets bearish, right? And that's not what happens. Instead, we invalidate all of it, break, hook, go. Okay, new highs, 280. So that's what we're looking for. What would be bad, of course, would be this with follow through. This is bad. Okay, but this is much more probable at the moment than this. Okay, FISA, we hate it, but we love it. FISA, hidden bearish divergence 3 times, bullish convergence, higher low, higher low, higher low, higher low. Okay, so we had this pretty critical resistance here that we have now broke out of and above today. So looks like earnings were positive, dividends paid this week, and you're getting price action to the upside. This is looking pretty good here, unfortunately, just because it's Pfizer, but whatever, we don't care what it is. Hide the ticker. X, A, B, C, and let's see if we can get some 1618, right? Here's some 1414, 1618. I mean, you might get it because it's Pfizer, especially. That would put you as high as $70. $70 potential upside here. So yeah, interesting, right? Now you're not going to go straight to 70, okay, but you know, you're going to find low resistance up here. Okay, sell off again, and then you flip it, right? Somewhere you sell off again, flip it. So it'll take time, but that's what we're looking for. A stop loss right now would be 45, 46, 45 roughly, right? 45, 46. You could be a little more conservative, do the 45. You're entering at 50. What's 45, right? When your target's 65 and 70, you're allowed to do that. Okay, not on leverage, not on options. And again, this isn't really somewhere, we're not trading the harmonic, okay? we're trading something else, and I'll show you that next. But that would be 3.5 to 1 all the way up to it from where we are. Okay, so what we're looking at is this. Let me zoom in here. What was we had this earlier, sorry. Yeah, I think this was on Pfizer. Okay, so it might have even been higher. I went lower on the time frame, but this could have been higher. 886. Let me go out. Yeah, it was 3-day. I went lower and it was higher. Okay, so hitting bullish divergence 1, 2, 3 times on both MACD and the RSI gave you this initial reaction, and now you've sold off, okay, but still painted a higher low right at earnings, and now you're painting on the opposite end what would be bullish convergence to the upside now. Okay, see that? So right now your invalidation point on all this would be right here, 45, right? Same spot. So 45 is the invalidation. Looking for this to now, you know, start to roll over and start to paint a higher high on positive momentum, right? Which would be bullish convergence to the upside. Yeah, that's what we're looking at. Pfizer. Okay, moving along. This one we've been watching for quite some time. LVS. Okay, I think even on weekly. There it is. So still just keeping an eye on her. This one's gonna be in our back pocket. Okay, as some of these targets hit on other items, whatever they may be, or whether that's Pinterest or Roku or AMD or Pfizer, whatever, right? As we're hitting targets there, we're going to be looking to accumulate a long in this zone, okay? At the 786, okay? From X low to the A high, we're looking for $20. 786 is right at $20. So that's that psychological, you know, round number, right? $20. Hopefully, you know, that can hold as support when we get there. Create some divergence, paint a massive Gartley, and this thing just absolutely just blows up, melt faces, right? So that would be, you know, 300% gains. This is going to be our, you know, maybe, you know, into next year this might occur. Over the next year or two, maybe it seems like casinos maybe, you know, have a second wind in them or whatever, right? And you get this rally. So again, this isn't buy it right this moment and you go right to the moon. It's not like that. This requires patience, but this is painting a 618 into a 786 with an 886 up top, right? This is just nasty Gartley, and it is massive, right? This thing started in 2008 crash, basically. This is the crash, the housing crash. So that's where this pivoted, anchored from. And yeah, interesting. We'll keep that one on our radar for sure. Next we have Rect, RKT, Rocket Companies. Rect, thought that's what it was, Rect, based on the chart. So potential swing low failure pattern here, where you have a low, lower low, higher low, swing low failure pattern. That'd be like your only hope on the weekly here, would be, you know, have a stop loss there at an invalidation of the low and just hope that the low's in, because like this thing has just been falling off a cliff. Let me see, on the weekly, yeah, bullish divergence on the MACD starting to develop, on the RSI developing, 3-day bullish divergence ish on the MACD, ish on the RSI, not as clear. On the daily, much better, where you have 1, 2, 3 times bullish divergence on the daily. So potential reaction into a, again, lower high, potentially, run up to 10, hit that psychological 10. You do have tail end RSI bullish divergence as well, which does support. This is literally the 3x with tail end 1x is the go-to play that we most commonly will find. 2, 3, there it is. Stop there. You're already rallying above it. So what still may occur is that double bottom, though. You got to watch for that, right? But yeah, I mean, if you wanted to grab a couple spot shares here and see what happens, earnings were good on revenue, little crappy on earnings overall, but the revenue was good. So yeah, I feel like it'd be probably best to wait for a little bit of confirmation here. Whether you sweep the low or not is not necessarily the point. It's more just, that could be like that, right? It's more just giving you that double bottom versus a single point, right? This gives you kind of two, more confirmation, right? Especially because like this has been just down, absolute down only, so kind of rough. All right, Rio. This is one I was thinking about earlier when I was looking at Pfizer. Sorry. Let's go to like the 3-day. Let's call that the 3-day. Okay. So not looking too bad here overall, I would say. You have, looking back all the way, you have this area, which was resistance here, resistance here, resistance here, resistance here, finally became support again, right? So that's like what was a previous range high is now your range low, okay? So that's where we're marking that from, okay? So that being said, let's mark that with an actual channel here, okay? So almost like that was almost like a deviation. Maybe it ends up being good. Let's see here. A little too early to tell on top, but roughly you get the idea. Okay, so now zooming in again, we've kind of painted our range. So again, we were hoping to buy the range low. We've now came and tested the range midpoint, sold off again, but painted a higher low than the previous low from December 21st, painting a higher low. So now we need to get back above this range midpoint so we can retest the range high, okay? So let me clean that up a little. I'm going to go to the daily. And we have a little bit of harmonic action occurring here as well. So swing low, swing high, swing low, roughly 886, swing high, roughly 886. 886, 786, yep, deep retrace. So pretty decent little battly again, where we wish this was slightly lower and we wish this was slightly higher, but whoops, only about like that, right? So overall you're fairly there structure wise. So hitting these targets, the A and C targets here, is basically saying let's come back up to the range high or midpoint, but now maybe hold above it, back testing it as support, right? What's been previous resistance, okay? And then we can run up and maybe test that range high, okay? What we don't want to see here is this, okay? This is your no-no. All right, there's Rio. And yeah, just going back to check on BTC again. Fell below. Whoops, sorry. Zoom in here. Zoom out. Fell below 30K again slightly, but you're still just hovering. You know, you're within $50 of it, so not the most critical problem at the moment. Upsloping trend line. Looks like we've already basically broken out of it and almost back tested it, which again, we don't really care, right? Because this is what we want to have happen anyways. Doesn't matter if it's from there or if it's from here, it's still the same thing. Okay, so yeah, be good to see this get back above 30, and maybe you can see some higher stuff, but overall it's gonna double bottom. I don't think we're necessarily gonna be able to fight that an incredible amount. I think it's just going to give you some confirmation re-entry if you're not already in a long, if you've been on the sidelines. Look for that double bottom for confirmation for your long, or look for the, you know, for it to not create the double bottom and basically invalidate it and start selling off to the downside. If you want to short that, that's fine, or you can wait for it to stabilize at either 23 or at 20K for if we, you know, if we lose this structure, right? So anyways, hope you guys enjoyed the stream. We went for a little over an hour, pretty common for us, right around an hour. Yeah, probably some effery on the DXY. Yep, of course, you're getting the DXY rebounding, which exactly is causing the BTC sell-off, okay? It's inverse, bro. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the stream. Catch you guys back in the Discord. Peace. Duck out.